Jimmy Doolittle was never a man seeking fame, applause, or recognition. He was a man forged in discipline, responsibility, and the quiet, unshakable understanding that history does not reward comfort. It rewards courage when everything is uncertain. And when World War II tore apart the illusion of American safety at Pearl Harbor, leaving a nation stunned, humiliated, and quietly trembling under the weight of fear and doubt, it was not only the destruction of ships or loss of men that wounded the country, it was the collapse of belief itself. Because when a nation loses faith in its own strength, victory becomes impossible, and hope feels like a distant memory. And in that fragile, broken moment, when despair threatened to overtake resolve, Jimmy Doolittle stepped forward to accept a mission that was unprecedented, daring, and nearly impossible. A mission so dangerous that survival was never guaranteed. A mission that required launching medium bombers from the deck of an aircraft carrier for the first time in history, flying thousands of miles across enemy-controlled skies, striking Tokyo itself, the symbolic heart of Imperial Japan, and then disappearing into uncertainty with no confirmed landing zones, no rescue forces, and no promise that any of the men who volunteered would ever return home. And Doolittle did not hide these harsh truths from his crews because he understood that courage cannot be built on lies. And as he looked into the eyes of those men, young, determined, aware of what they were risking, he saw not machines, but fathers, sons, and husbands placing duty above their own lives, and he carried their trust like a second skin, because true leadership is measured not by the absence of fear, but by the weight one chooses to carry in spite of it. And on April 18th, 1942, when Japanese patrols detected the task force earlier than expected, forcing the bombers to launch hundreds of miles ahead of schedule and turning an already near-suicidal mission into something bordering on certain death, Doolittle faced a choice that would define his legacy: retreat to preserve lives or launch to restore hope. And he chose action, knowing that hesitation would protect flesh but destroy spirit, because sometimes the survival of a nation's soul demands risks that logic alone cannot justify. And so, as his B-25 lifted violently from the deck of the USS Hornet, engines roaring against crashing waves and violent winds, it carried more than bombs. It carried defiance, determination, and the weight of a wounded nation refusing to surrender. And when the bombs fell over Tokyo, the physical destruction was limited, but the psychological impact was monumental, shattering Japan's belief in its invulnerability and sending a message across the world that America, though wounded, would rise again. Yet the true cost of the raid revealed itself after the explosions faded. When fuel ran low, darkness swallowed the skies, and crews were forced to bail out into storms, mountains, enemy territory, and destiny itself, some dying alone on foreign soil, some captured and tortured, some executed. Their sacrifices rarely remembered in official records, while Doolittle himself landed believing the mission a failure, convinced that he had risked too many lives for too little gain, fully expecting punishment, disgrace, or court-martial rather than praise, because he measured success not by headlines, applause, or medals, but by the faces of men who never came home. And when America instead welcomed him as a hero and awarded him the Medal of Honor, he accepted it with quiet heaviness, because medals cannot erase memory and recognition cannot silence conscience. And long after the war ended and history simplified the Doolittle Raid into a story of heroic triumph, Doolittle remained a man defined not by fame, but by accountability. Because history celebrates victories, but leaders carry consequences. And the Doolittle Raid endures not because Tokyo burned, but because one man chose to risk his life, his reputation, and his peace of mind to restore hope to a broken nation. To remind a world that surrendering spirit is the first and most dangerous defeat of all, and that courage is born not from certainty, but from stepping into the unknown when everything you value is on the line. And now, the story does not belong solely to history or textbooks or war museums. It belongs to all of us, because the same question still waits for an answer today. If hope demanded everything from you, with no guarantee of survival, no promise that your sacrifice would ever be understood or remembered, would you step forward and answer the call like Jimmy Doolittle did? Or would you let fear quietly decide the legacy of your life while history moved on without you?